Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Storytime with Moog. I am Moog, and today we are reading Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, starting with chapter 15. But first, maybe we get to meet Anna today. What? We've been reading for two streams. We're 7% in, and we have yet to see Anna. Does she come in the first 50%? I don't know. um, Reading updates. So I am continuing to read Feeding Ghosts, which is a graphic novel, and it's a graphic novel memoir. And the person writing it is writing about her family and the traumas that they have lived through and have been passing on through generations. The author, was born in the US, but her mom and her grandma were living in communist China. So lots of things going on, and her grandma was a journalist as well. So a lot of things, and it's really, really good. Like you can tell that the author did a lot of research in that there are like timelines of like this is what was happening during this time in China, and this is what's happening with my grandma, and these are the things that she did to survive. And there's even like excerpts from her grandma's book that was banned in China, and there's just like excerpts in it, and so it's our author trying to also piece together what she knows of her grandma, which was like a shell a shell of a human by the time she was like around, and the like portrayal of her grandma from stories that she's heard from her mom, but then also from this, writing that her grandma did like at the time. So it is very interesting, just seeing, the just everything. It's very interesting. I liked it, or I like it. I'm currently still reading it. And then the book that I started today is called The Hunger Book, and I don't remember the author. Oops. But it is also a nonfiction, and it is also about like immigrants and like generational trauma and that sort of thing. And but it's with Poland. And so like our main character was, or like our author was born in Poland, and had since emigrated to the US and has a family of her own. And it deals a lot with like her relationship with her mom from when she was really little, but then also like as an adult, and how her mom is now, which is barely functioning. And when she was also little, like her mom was barely functioning, like barely holding it together. And each of the chapters are named after um like a food in a way. Like the first chapter is mushroom, and it talks about like the foundational things, like who she is, who her mom is, all of these things. But it's done in such a way that it doesn't really feel like it is nonfiction because it's written narratively, and it moves around from like the present to the past and then back to the present, and it's just like informing back and forth of experiences. And then also, at least in the chapters that I've read, I'm only like 40 something pages in, it has like a recipe. So like with mushrooms, it was like we used to forage these mushrooms, and then there was like a little recipe of the things that they did. And then there's a chapter called birds, and there's a recipe for birds. Is the recipe for birds? Oh, for like chicken liver, like that. And so like it's just interesting. I am fascinated, and I'm loving it. And the cover is just amazing. I'll hold up the book next time. But the cover is pretty amazing. Mm, is that all that I'm reading? Oh, and I started listening to Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood, and it's a YA book, and it's about this girl who is now 18, and she is holding a lot of the financial burdens of her family. Her mom has a chronic disease, and her siblings are younger than she is and trying to do all of the things of a normal, teenager or normal middle schooler. And so she's like holding the burden of a lot of like financial stuff and something about chess. Like she used to be like this chess like genius and really really good and whatever, and her friend convinces her to go to a chess tournament. It is a non-profit. She goes there and she beats the like world champion, the grand master of chess, and she gets like flabbergasted and immediately leaves, like doesn't talk to anybody, doesn't finish the rest of the competition, just gets up and leaves. And a scout comes and finds her and is like, I'm offering you this fellowship. And it's basically a job. She would be like working, like getting ready to play chess in this something. I don't really know yet. But she's like studying chess from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. But she hasn't told her family that. She told her family that she has another job, like something about like helping old people. And she like made up a place of where she's going for it. So we'll see. At first I was like, sounds really dumb and I'm gonna hate it. But it's getting better, I think. I think what's the positive thing is that the author is not trying to throw in all of this like Gen Z slang that would just be so distracting and so upsetting. So I think that is helping, and the characters just seem okay for now. We'll see. We'll see. I haven't read a young adult book in a while, so we'll see. And now I think that's everything. Um, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I don't remember what happened last time. Yes, I do. I'm just kidding. It was uncomfortable. Yeah, it was awkward. Okay. So Levin is like, I want to marry this woman that I used to grow up with, or that I grew up with. I don't know why I made it sound so silly. That I grew up with. Her name is Kitty, and I want to marry her. She's the most beautiful woman in the world. She's smart, all of these things. And so he goes to ask her to like to propose. And we get a little bit of background on it. He used to live in the city, now he lives in the country, and like at the time when he was in the city, Kitty and Levin were seeing each other all the time. They were, it seemed like it was leading up to a proposal, and then he just left for the country. While he was in the country, along came, I forgot his name. It's not Jack, but I'm gonna call him Jack. Along came Jack and started wooing her. And Jack is everything that Levin is not. He has influence, he is beautiful, he's super successful, like all of these things. And Mama, Kitty's mama, is like, well, I want her to marry Jack and not Levin, and I hope that this is what's going to happen. So everybody's invited to this party. Levin shows up early, hoping to meet Kitty by herself. It happens. He awkwardly, very awkwardly, asks her, like proposes to her, and she's just like, no. And so Mama comes down the stairs, notices the tension, and is like, ah, yes, he asked. But she said no. And then people from the party start like appearing, and Levin is just like stuck trying to do an Irish goodbye and just like exit, do a Homer Simpson into the bushes. But people just keep bringing him into discussions. And who should appear but Jack? Jack is both nimble and quick, and he appears, and Levin is like, oh, he is actually kind of gorgeous and kind of super nice. And they get into this discussion, and it's very, highfalutin, very fancy, very educational, everything like that. And then eventually, Levin is able to just remove himself. Levin is trying hard to negate his existence with sheer awkwardness. Yes, pretty much. And that is where we're at. So let's have sips. Let's get cozy. Let's do it. I'm also super enjoying this book. I don't know why I'm so surprised at how much I'm enjoying this, but I'm really enjoying it and I'm surprised. I did also write down extra names that we heard last time. Um, so I'm just keeping a tally of all of the names and how to pronounce them, so we'll see. All right, chapter 15. At the end of the evening, Kitty told her mother of her conversation with Levin, and in spite of all the pity she felt for Levin, she was glad at the thought that she had received an offer. She had no doubt that she had acted rightly, but after she had gone to bed, for a long while she could not sleep. One impression pursued her relentlessly. It was Levin's face, with his scowling brows and his kind eyes looking out in dark dejection below them as he stood listening to her father and glancing at her and at Vronsky. And she felt so sorry for him that tears came into her eyes, but immediately she thought of the man for whom she had given him up. She vividly recalled his manly, resolute face, his noble self-possession, and the good nature conspicuous in everything towards everyone. She remembered the love for her of the man she loved, and once more all was gladness in her soul, and she lay on the pillow, smiling with happiness. I'm sorry, but what could I do? It's not my fault, she said to herself. But an inner voice told her something else. Whether she felt remorse at having won Levin's love or at having refused him, she did not know. But her happiness was poisoned by doubts. Lord, have pity on us. Lord, have pity on us. Lord, have pity on us, she repeated to herself, till she fell asleep. Meanwhile, there took place below, in the prince's little library, one of the scenes so often repeated between the parents on account of their favorite daughter. What? I'll tell you what, shouted the prince, waving his arms, and at once wrapping his squirrel-lined dressing gown round him again. That you've no pride, no dignity, that you're disgracing, ruining your daughter by this vulgar, stupid matchmaking. But really, for mercy's sake, prince, what have I done? Said the princess, almost crying. She, pleased and happy after her conversation with her daughter, had gone to the prince to say good night, as usual, and though she had no intention of telling him of Levin's offer and Kitty's refusal, still she hinted to her husband that she fancied things were practically settled with Vronsky, and that he would declare himself so soon as his mother arrived. And thereupon, at those words, the prince had all at once flown into a passion and began to use unseemly language. What have you done? I'll tell you what. First of all, you're trying to catch ineligible gentlemen, and all Moscow will be talking of it, and with good reason. If you have evening parties, invite everyone. Don't pick out the possible suitors. Invite all the young bucks. Engage a piano player and let them dance, and not as you do things nowadays. Hunting up good matches makes me sick. Sick to see it. And you've gone on till you've turned the poor wench's head. Levin's 1,000 times a better man. As for this little Petersburg swell, they're turned out by machinery, all on one pattern and all precious rubbish. But if he were a prince of the blood, my daughter need not run after anyone. But what have I done? Why, you've... The prince was crying wrathfully. I know if one were to listen to you, interrupted the princess, we should never marry our daughter. If it's to be so, we'd better go into the country. Well, and we had better. But do wait a minute. Do I try and catch them? I don't try to catch them in the least. A young man, and a very nice one, has fallen in love with her, and she, I fancy... Oh, yes, you fancy. And how, if she really is in love, and he's no more thinking of marriage than I am... Oh, that I should live to see it. Spiritualism. Nice. Ugh, the ball. And the prince, imagining that he was mimicking his wife, made a mincing curtsy at each word. And this is how we're preparing wretchedness for Kitty. And she's really got the notion into her head. But what makes you suppose so? Don't suppose, I know. We have eyes for such things, though women folk haven't. I see a man who has serious intentions. That's Levin. And I see a peacock, like his feather head, who's only amusing himself. Oh, well, when once you get an idea into your head, well, you'll remember my words, but too late, just as with Dolly. Well, well, we won't talk of it, said the princess, stopped him, recollecting her unlucky Dolly. By all means, and good night. And signaling each other with the cross, the husband and wife parted with a kiss, feeling that they each remained of their own opinion. The princess had at first been quite certain that that evening had settled Kitty's future, and that there could be no doubt of Vronsky's intentions. But her husband's words had disturbed her, and returning to her own room, in terror before the unknown future, she, too, like Kitty, repeated several times in her heart, Lord, have pity. Lord, have pity. Lord, have pity. End of chapter 15. Okay, so Mama, the princess, and the mama of Kitty, it let slip, not intentionally. She didn't go up to bed intentionally to tell her husband, the prince, that about Levin and Kitty, but she said it, and Papa is like, you nincompoop. We don't like Vronsky, we like Levin. And Mama is like, no, no, we like Vronsky, we don't like Levin. And so they're going back and forth about like the like, what are you doing? This is not how you do, this is not how you court. You need to have all of these things. And there is mention of Dolly and how they did wrong by her. And it's like, oh, unlucky Dolly. Dolly is one of the older sisters of Kitty. And they just like part ways in like a little bit of a spat, neither one of them changing their mind. So Mama still thinks that Vronsky is the one, and Papa thinks that Levin is the one. Chapter 16. Vronsky had never had a real home life. His mother had been in her youth a brilliant society woman, who had had during her married life, and still more afterwards, many love affairs notorious in the whole fashionable world. His father he scarcely remembered, and he had been educated in the corps of pages. Leaving the school very young as a brilliant officer, he had at once got into the circle of wealthy Petersburg army men, although he did go more or less into Petersburg society. His love affairs had always hitherto been outside it. In Moscow he had for the first time felt, after his luxurious and coarse life at Petersburg, all the charm of intimacy with a sweet and innocent girl of his own rank who cared for him. It never even entered his head that there could be any harm in his relationship with Kitty. At balls he danced principally with her. He was a constant visitor at their house. He talked to her as people commonly do talk in society, all sorts of nonsense, but nonsense to which he could not help attaching a special meaning in her case. Although he said nothing to her that he could not have said before anybody, before everybody, he felt that she was becoming more and more dependent upon him, and the more he felt this, the better he liked it, and the tenderer was his feeling for her. He did not know what his mode of behavior in relation to Kitty had a definite character, that it is courting young girls with no intention of marriage, and that such courting is one of the evil actions common among brilliant young men, such as he was. It seemed to him that he was the first who had discovered this pleasure, and he was enjoying his discovery. If he could have heard what her parents were saying that evening, if he could have put himself at the point of view of the family and have heard that Kitty would be unhappy if he did not marry her, he would have been greatly astonished and would not have believed it. He could not believe that what gave such great and delicate pleasure to him, and above all to her, could be wrong. Still less could he have believed that he ought to marry. Marriage had never presented itself to him as a possibility. He not only disliked family life, but a family, and especially a husband, was, in accordance with the views general in the bachelor world in which he lived, conceived as something alien, repellent, and above all, ridiculous. But though Vronsky had not the least suspicion what the parents were saying, he felt on coming away from the Sherbatskoys that the secret spiritual bond which existed between him and Kitty had grown so much stronger that evening that some step must be taken. But what step could and ought to be taken, he could not imagine. What is so exquisite, he thought, as he returned from the Sherbatskoys, carrying away with him, as he always did, a delicious feeling of purity and freshness, arising partly from the fact that he had not been smoking for a whole evening, and with it a new feeling of tenderness at her love for him. What is so exquisite is that not a word has been said by me or by her, but we understand each other so well in this unseen language of looks and tones that this evening more clearly than ever she told me she loves me. And how secretly, simply, and most of all, how trustfully I feel myself better, purer. I feel that I have a heart, and that there is a great deal of good in me. Those sweet, loving eyes. When she said, "Indeed, I do." Well, what then? Oh, nothing. It's good for me and good for her. And he began wondering where to finish the evening. He passed in review of the places he might go to. Club? A game in Bezique, Champagne, and Ignatov? No, I'm not going. Chateau de Fleur? There I shall find Oblonsky, songs, and can-can. No, I'm sick of it. That's why I like the Sherbatskoys. That I'm growing better. I'll go home. He went straight to his room at Dussault's hotel, ordered supper, and then undressed, and as soon as his head touched the pillow, fell into a sound sleep. End of chapter 16. Chapter 16 is the end of the party, and we get Vronsky's thoughts and opinions. And we've established him not as a bad guy. Even though it may seem like he is, he's not. He is courting and flirting without the expectation and without even the thought of marrying Kitty, because they are both just having a great time. And if he, even heard the conversation that the parents were having about marriage and that Kitty was expecting a proposal from him, he just would have been astonished. Like, it didn't even cross his mind that that's what he was like suggesting by his flirtatious conversations, because it's not like he's saying anything or doing anything just for Kitty's benefit. Like, he does this, he talks the way he talks and he acts the way he acts in front of everybody. It's not like a hidden secret or anything like that, so he doesn't think that it is something that is so private. And so, like, it's the end of the party, he's walking out and he's like, all right, well, where should I go? And he's running down the list of places that he wants to go, and he's like, I don't really think I want to do that. And he's like, because I hang out at the Sherbatskoys, I am becoming a better person. And so he just goes home, eats, and as soon as his precious little head hits the pillow, he's asleep. Chapter 17. Next day at 11 o'clock in the morning, Vronsky drove to the station, of the Petersburg Railway to meet his mother, and the first person he came across on the great flight of steps was Oblonsky, who was expecting his sister by the same train. "Ah, Your Excellency!" cried Oblonsky. "Whom are you meeting?" "My mother," Vronsky responded, smiling as everyone did who met Oblonsky. He shook hands with him, and together they ascended the steps. "She is going to be here from Petersburg today." "I was looking out for you till 2 o'clock last night. Where did you go after the Shabbatskoys?" "Home," answered Vronsky. "I must own I felt so well content yesterday after the Shabbatskoys that I didn't care to go anywhere. I know a gallant steed by tokens sure, and by his eyes I know a youth in love," declaimed Stepan Arkadyevitch, just as he had done before to Levin. Vronsky smiled, with a look that seemed to say that he did not deny it, but he promptly changed the subject. "And whom are you meeting?" he asked. "I? I've come to meet a pretty woman," said Oblonsky. "You don't say so." "My sister, Anna." "Ah, that's Madame Karenina," said Vronsky. "You know her, no doubt?" "I think I do. Or perhaps not. I really am not sure," Vronsky answered heedlessly, with a vague recollection of something stiff and tedious evoked by the name Karenina. "But Alexey Alexandrovitch, my celebrated brother-in-law, you surely must know. All the world knows him." "I know him by reputation and by sight. I know that he's clever, learned, religious somewhat, but you know that's not in my line," said Vronsky in English. "Yes, he's a very remarkable man, rather a conservative, but a splendid man," observed Stepan Arkadyevitch. "A splendid man." "Oh, well, so much the better for him," said Vronsky, smiling. "Oh, you've come," he said, addressing a tall old footman of his mother's, standing at the door. "Come here." Besides the charm Oblonsky had in general for everyone, Vronsky had felt of late specially drawn to him by the fact that in his imagination he was associated with Kitty. "Well, what do you say? Shall we give a supper on Sunday for the diva?" he said to him with a smile, taking his arm. "Of course. I'm collecting subscriptions." "Oh, did you make the acquaintance of my friend Levin?" asked Stepan Arkadyevitch. "Yes, but he left rather early." "He's a capital fellow," pursued Oblonsky, "isn't he?" "I don't know why it is," responded Vronsky, "and all Moscow people, present company of course excepted," he put in jestingly. "There's something uncompromising. They're all on the defensive, lose their tempers, as though all want to make one feel something." "Yes, that's true, it is so," said Stepan Arkadyevitch, laughing good-humoredly. "Will the train soon be in?" Vronsky asked a railway official. "The train's signaled," answered the man. The approach of the train was more and more evident by the preparatory bustle in the station, the rush of porters, the movement of policemen and attendants, and people meeting the train. Through the frosty vapor could be seen workmen in short sheepskins and soft felt boots crossing the rails of the curving line. The hiss of the boiler could be heard on the distant rails, and the rumble of something heavy. "No," said Stepan Arkadyevitch, who felt a great inclination to tell Vronsky of Levin's intentions in regard to Kitty. "No, you've not got a true impression of Levin. He's a very nervous man, and is sometimes out of humor, it's true. But then he is often very nice. He's such a true, honest nature, and a heart of gold. But yesterday there were special reasons," pursued Stepan Arkadyevitch with a meaning smile, totally oblivious of the genuine sympathy he had felt the day before for his friend, and feeling the same sympathy now, only for Vronsky. Yes, there were reasons why he could not help being either particularly happy or particularly unhappy. Vronsky stood still and asked directly, "How so? Do you mean he made your belle-sœur an offer yesterday?" "Maybe," said Stepan Arkadyevitch. "I fancied something of the sort yesterday. Yes, if he went away early and was out of humor too, it must mean it. He's been so long in love, and I'm very sorry for him. So that's it? I should imagine, though, she might reckon on a better match," said Vronsky, drawing himself up and walking about again. "Though I don't know him, of course," he added. "Yes, that is a hateful position. That's why most fellows prefer to have to do with the Claras. If you don't succeed with them, it only proves that you've not enough cash. But in this case, one's dignity's at stake. Ah, but here's the train." The engine had already whistled in the distance. A few instants later, the platform was quivering, and with puffs of steam hanging low in the air from the frost, the engine rolled up, with the lever of the middle wheel rhythmically moving up and down, and the stooping figure of the engine driver covered with frost. Behind the tender, setting the platform more and more slowly swaying, came the luggage van, with a dog whining in it. At last the passenger carriages rolled in, oscillating before coming to a standstill. A smart guard jumped out, giving a whistle, and after him, one by one, the impatient passengers began to get down. An officer of the guards, holding himself erect and looking severely about him, a nimble little merchant with a satchel, smiling, a peasant with a sack over his shoulder. Vronsky, standing beside Oblonsky, watched the carriages and the passengers, totally oblivious of his mother. What he had just heard about Kitty excited and delighted him. Unconsciously, he arched his chest, and his eyes flashed. He felt himself a conqueror. "Countess Vronskaya is in that compartment," said the smart guard, going up to Vronsky. The guard's words roused him, and forced him to think of his mother and his approaching meeting with her. He did not, in his heart, respect his mother, and without acknowledging it to himself, he did not love her, though, in accordance with the ideas of the set in which he lived, and with his own education, he could not have conceived of any behavior to his mother not in the highest degree respectful and obedient. And the more externally obedient and respectful his behavior, the less in his heart he respected and loved her. End of chapter 17. I was ready for Anna to just fling herself off the train and finally enter the story. But in chapter 17, we have Vronsky and Oblonsky both waiting at the train station. Vronsky is waiting for his mother, and Oblonsky is waiting for his sister, who is Anna Karenina. And they have a little discussion that Levin is brought up, and Oblonsky is like, "Oh, yeah, like he was acting a little odd yesterday, but like I know why." And they just, without explicitly saying it, they've both pieced together that Levin did ask Kitty to marry him, and Kitty had said no. They both had that unspoken, spoken conversation. And then we get a little insight into Vronsky and his relationship with his family, specifically with his mother. And it's just like, I don't really like her. I don't really respect her, and I don't really love her. And the more he is acting like he is respecting and is loving because of appearances and because that's like what is expected of him, the more he doesn't. Interesting. So I'm excited to see how his mama is going to fit into this. Maybe this chapter will get Anna. Maybe. I think that every chapter, though. It's like, maybe this is the chapter. This is the one. Maybe. Maybe. All right. Chapter 18. Vronsky followed the guard to the carriage, and at the door of the compartment he stopped short to make room for a lady who was getting out. With the insight of a man of the world, from one glance at his lady's appearance, Vronsky classified her as belonging to the best society. He begged pardon and was getting into the carriage, but felt he must glance at her once more. Not that she was very beautiful, not on account of the elegance and modest grace which were apparent in her whole figure, but because in the expression on her charming face, as she passed close by him, there was something peculiarly caressing and soft. As he looked round, she too turned her head. Her shining gray eyes that looked dark from the thick lashes rested with friendly attention on his face, as though she were recognizing him, and then promptly turned away to the passing crowd, as though seeking someone. In that brief look, Vronsky had time to notice the suppressed eagerness which played over her face, and flitted between the brilliant eyes and the faint smile that curved her red lips. It was as though her nature were so brimming over with something that against her will it showed itself now in the flash of her eyes, and now in her smile. Deliberately, she shrouded the light in her eyes, but it shone against her will in the faintly perceptible smile. Vronsky stepped into the carriage. His mother, a dried-up old lady with black eyes and ringlets, screwed up her eyes, scanning her son, and smiled slightly with her thin lips. Getting up from the seat and handing her maid a bag, she gave her little wrinkled hand to her son to kiss, and lifting his head from her hand, kissed him on the cheek. "You got my telegram? Quite well, thank God." "You had a good journey?" said her son, sitting down beside her and involuntarily listening to a woman's voice outside the door. He knew it was the voice of the lady he had met at the door. "All the same, I don't agree with you," said the lady's voice. "It's the Petersburg view, madam." "Not Petersburg, but simply feminine," she responded. Well, allow me to kiss your hand." "Goodbye, Ivan Petrovitch, and could you see if my brother is here, and send him to me?" said the lady in the doorway, and stepped back again into the compartment. Well, have you found your brother?" said Countess Vronskaya, addressing the lady. Vronsky understood now that this was Madame Karenina. "Your brother is here," he said, standing up. "Excuse me, I did not know you, and indeed our acquaintance was so slight," said Vronsky, bowing, "that no doubt you do not remember me." "Oh, no," said she. "I should have known you because your mother and I have been talking. I think of nothing but you all the way." As she spoke, she let the eagerness that would insist on coming out show itself in her smile. "And still no sign of my brother." "Do call him, Alexei," said the old countess. Vronsky stepped out onto the platform and shouted, "Oblonsky! Here!" Madame Karenina, however, did not wait for her brother, but catching sight of him, she stepped out with her light, resolute step. And as soon as her brother had reached her with a gesture that struck Vronsky by its decision and its grace, she flung her left arm around his neck, drew him rapidly to her, and kissed him warmly. Vronsky gazed, never taking his eyes from her, and smiled. He could not have said why. But recollecting that his mother was waiting for him, he went back again into the carriage. "She's very sweet, isn't she?" said the Countess of Madame Karenina. "Her husband put her with me, and I was delighted to have her. We've been talking all the way, and so you, I hear. We got some French. Vous filez les parfaits amours, tant mieux, mon cher, tant mieux. I don't know what you are referring to, maman, he answered coldly. Come, maman, let us go. Madame Karenina entered the carriage, said again to say goodbye to the Countess. Well, Countess, you have met your son, and I, my brother, she said, and all my gossip is exhausted. I should have nothing more to tell you. Oh, no, said the Countess, taking her hand. I could go all around the world with you and never be dull. You are one of those delightful women in whose company it's sweet to be silent as well as to talk. Now, please don't fret over your son. You can't expect never to be parted. Madame Karenina stood quite still, holding herself very erect, and her eyes were smiling. Anna Arkadievna, the Countess said in explanation to her son, has a little 8-year-old son, I believe, and she has never been parted from him before, and she keeps fretting over leaving him. Yes, the Countess and I have been talking all the time, I of my son and she of hers, said Madame Karenina, and again a smile lighted up her face, a caressing smile intended for him. I am afraid that you must have been dreadfully bored, said he promptly, catching the ball of coquetry she had flung at him. But apparently she did not care to pursue the conversation in that strain, and she turned to the old Countess. Thank you very much. The time has passed so quickly. Goodbye, Countess. Goodbye, my love, answered the Countess. Let me have a kiss of your pretty face. I speak plainly at my age, and I tell you simply that I've lost my heart to you. Stereotyped, as the phrase was, Madame Karenina obviously believed it, and was delighted by it. She flushed, bent down slightly, and put her cheek to the Countess's lips, drew herself up again, and with the same smile fluttering between her lips and her eyes, she gave her hand to Vronsky. He pressed the little hand she gave him, and was delighted, as though at something special, by the energetic squeeze and which she freely and vigorously shook his hand. She went out with the rapid step which bore her rather fully developed figure with such strange lightness. Very charming, said the Countess. That was just what her son was thinking. His eyes followed her till her graceful figure was out of sight, and then the smile remained on his face. He saw out of the window how she went up to her brother, put her arm in his, and began telling him something eagerly. Obviously something that had nothing to do with him, Vronsky, and at that he felt annoyed. Well, maman, are you perfectly well? He repeated, turning to his mother. Everything has been delightful. Alexander has been very good, and Marie has grown very pretty. She's very interesting. And she began telling him again of what interested her most, the christening of her grandson, for which she had been staying in Petersburg, and the special favor shown her elder son by the Tsar. Here's Lavrenti, said Vronsky, looking out of the window. Now we can go, if you like. The old butler, who had travelled with the Countess, came to the carriage to announce that everything was ready, and the Countess got up to go. Come, there's not such a crowd now, said Vronsky. The maid took a handbag and the lapdog, the butler and a porter the other baggage. Vronsky gave his mother his arm, but just as they were getting out of the carriage, several men ran suddenly by with panic-stricken faces. The station-master, too, ran by in his extraordinary colored cap. Obviously something unusual had happened. The crowd who had left the train were running back. What? What? Where? Flung himself, crushed, was heard among the crowd. Stepan Arkadyevitch, with his sister on his arm, turned back, They too looked scared and stopped at the carriage door to avoid the crowd. The ladies got in, while Vronsky and Stepan Arkadyevitch followed the crowd to find out details of the disaster. A guard, either drunk or too much muffled up in the bitter frost, had not heard the train moving back, and had been crushed. Before Vronsky and Oblonsky came back, the ladies heard the facts from the butler. Oblonsky and Vronsky had both seen the mutilated corpse. Oblonsky was evidently upset. He frowned and seemed ready to cry. How awful. Anna, if you had seen it. How awful, he said. Vronsky did not speak. His handsome face was serious, but perfectly composed. Oh, if you had seen it, Countess, said Stepan Arkadyevitch, and his wife was there. It was awful to see her. She flung herself on the body. They say he was the only support of an immense family. How awful. Couldn't one do anything for her? Asked Madame Karenina in an agitated whisper. Vronsky glanced at her and immediately got out of the carriage. I'll be back directly, maman, he remarked, turning round in the doorway. When he came back a few minutes later, Stepan Arkadyevitch was already in conversation with the Countess about the new singer, while the Countess was impatiently looking towards the door, waiting for her son. Now let's be off, said Vronsky, coming in. They went out together. Vronsky was in front of his mother. Behind walked Madame Karenina with her brother. Just as they were going out of the station master overtook Vronsky. You gave my assistant 200 rubles. Would you kindly explain for whose benefit you intend them? For the widow, said Vronsky, shrugging his shoulders. I should have thought there was no need to ask. You gave that? Cried Oblonsky behind, and pressing his sister's hand, he added, Very nice. Isn't he a splendid fellow? Goodbye, Countess. And he and his sister stood still, looking for her maid. When they went out, the Vronskys' carriage had already driven away. People coming in were still talking of what had happened. What a horrible death, said a gentleman passing by. They say he was cut in 2 pieces. On the contrary, I think it's the easiest, instantaneous, observed another. How is it they don't take proper precautions? Said a third. Madame Karenina seated herself in the carriage, and Stepan Arkadyevitch saw with surprise that her lips were quivering, and she was, with difficulty, restraining her tears. What is it, Anna? He asked, when they had driven a few hundred yards. It's an omen of evil, she said. What nonsense, said Stepan Arkadyevitch. You've come. That's the chief thing. You can't conceive how I'm resting my hopes on you. Have you known Vronsky long? She asked. Yes. You know we're hoping he will marry Kitty. Yes, said Anna softly. Come now. Let us talk of you, she added, tossing her head as though she would physically shake off something superfluous oppressing her. Let us talk of your affairs. I got your letter, and here I am. Yes, all my hopes are in you, said Stepan Arkadyevitch. Well, tell me all about it. And Stepan Arkadyevitch began to tell his story. On reaching home, Oblonsky helped his sister out, sighed, pressed her hand, and set off to his office. End of chapter 18. Chapter 18. Okay, so we meet Mama Vronsky, and she is described perfectly. She's described perfectly. You get exactly who she is as a person and who she is, like, exuding, like, putting for people to know, and who she is on the inside that is, like, deep within the clutches that, like, sometimes slips out. And the expectations and the Hmm, I don't know. Can't think of the word, but like what she wants from her son and herself and society and that type of thing. And we also meet Anna, which is great. We finally meet Anna in chapter 18. And Anna and the Countess Vronsky become friends on the train. They are both talking about her sons. Yes, Anna has an 8-year-old son that she is leaving for the first time, and she's very worried about it. And that is how they bonded. They talked the whole train ride, and it made it fly by really fast. And so they're saying their goodbyes, everything like that. And as they're leaving, they notice that people are like shouting and disgusted, and there's a panic, and people are running back to the train station. And so Vronsky and Stepan go to see like what is going on, and somebody has been hit by the train. Either because he was drunk, because he wasn't paying attention, because the train moved unexpectedly. It's unclear why this happened, but he was hit and run over. And both Vronsky and Stepan Oblonsky are just deeply impacted by it, and to the point of being speechless, and to the point of just like having this image like burned in their brain. And the wife of this woman like throws herself onto the body and just starts crying, and they hear that he is the sole contributor monetarily to the family, like he's the sole financial support of the family. And Anna is just deeply saddened by this. She and the Countess hear what has happened from the Countess's butler, and they are both disturbed and upset by this. And she's just like, why? Like, can nothing be done? Can somebody help her? Like, what can we do? Type of a thing. And Vronsky leaves. And when he comes back, we find out that he has given money to the station master to pass on to the wife of the deceased man to support. And Oblonsky is like, wow, that's real nice of you. Good job, boyo. And and then they leave, and Anna is walking along with her brother Stepan, and is just like, okay, so we didn't come here to talk about me. We didn't come here to talk about Vronsky. I got your letter. Tell me everything about the affairs. And Stepan is like, thank you so much. You will save me. You will be the one that sews everything back up into a nice little package, and everything will be great. Because Stepan has been having affairs outside of his marriage. And he is just convinced that Anna is going to be able to come in and mediate between the two, him and his wife Daria, and make everything okay again. We'll see. We'll see. Yes, we also meet Anna, but think about all of the unanswered questions that are introduced with her. Yes, in her introduction, it's not so um like I mean, I guess it is like a little mysterious and alluring, but there's immediate questions that are like, okay, Anna, what's your deal type of a thing. Like, yeah, intriguing. Exactly, exactly. And get we don't know her countenance as quickly as we do with the Countess. We know that she is a sprightly young maiden, and even though she's, what did they say, a full-figured woman, she is very light of step, and she's dainty, and she is just full of life. But there's definitely more, and we don't know what that is. We don't get like flashes in the eyes or like little smirks or anything like that. So I'm very interested to see what Anna's deal is. What's your deal, Anna? Tell me. Who knew that a Russian classic chonker of a book would get me so hyped. These chapters really are flying by. Even like the longer ones that say that they're like 15 to 20 minutes just seem so much faster. And it's all in the writing style, you know? Like we had 20, 15-minute, 20-minute chapters with Victor Hugo, and even though those were the short chapters, they still felt long. Yeah, there's a nice flow with Tolstoy's writing that is very different than Victor Hugo's writing. Hugo is much more dense, exactly. Much more dense, much more detail oriented, much more descriptive. Um, Whereas like Tolstoy is like, let me introduce this character without them saying anything and with not as many words as you think I'm going to need. And it's brilliant. The word choice is brilliant. The little details that Tolstoy gives us are great. They're so great. Like the conversation that was between Levin and Oblonsky at the office, and Levin notices one of the guy's fingernails. Like that is so good. It's so good because it is something that people would notice. You know, like if that's very different out of your world, like you work on a farm, you work with cattle, you probably don't have like long fingernails. And oh, the nails are yellowing. Interesting. Interesting. Let's read this chapter. Chapter 19. When Anna went into the room, Dolly was sitting in the little drawing room with a white-headed, fat little boy, already like his father, giving him a lesson in French reading. As the boy read, he kept twisting and trying to tear off a button that was nearly off his jacket. His mother had several times taken his hand from it, but the fat little hand went back to the button again. His mother pulled the button off and put it in her pocket. "Keep your hands still, Grisha," she said, and she took up her work, a coverlet she had long been making. She always set to work on it at depressed moments, and now she knitted at it nervously, twitching her fingers and counting the stitches. Though she had sent word the day before to her husband that it was nothing to her whether his sister came or not, she had made everything ready for her arrival, and was expecting her sister-in-law with emotion. Dolly was crushed by her sorrow, utterly swallowed up by it. Still, she did not forget that Anna, her sister-in-law, was the wife of one of the most important personages in Petersburg, and was a Petersburg grande dame. And, thanks to this circumstance, she did not carry out her threat to her husband. That is to say, she remembered that her sister-in-law was coming. And, after all, Anna is in no wise to blame, thought Dolly. I know nothing of her except the very best, and I have seen nothing but kindness and affection from her towards myself. It was true that, as far as she could recall her impressions at Petersburg at the Karenins, she did not like their household itself. There was something artificial in the whole framework of their family life. But why should I not receive her? If only she doesn't take it into her head to console me, thought Dolly. All consolation and counsel and Christian forgiveness, all that I have thought over 1,000 times, and it's all no use. All these days, Dolly had been alone with her children. She did not want to talk of her sorrow, but with that sorrow in her heart, she could not talk of outside matters. She knew that in one way or another she would tell Anna everything, and she was alternately glad at the thought of speaking freely and angry at the necessity of speaking of her humiliation with her, his sister, and of hearing her ready-made phrases of good advice and comfort. She had been on the lookout for her, glancing at her watch every minute, and, as so often happens, let slip just that minute when her visitor arrived, so that she did not hear the bell. Catching a sound of skirts and light steps on the door, she looked round, and her careworn face unconsciously expressed not gladness, but wonder. She got up and embraced her sister-in-law. "What, here already?" she said, as she kissed her. "Dolly, how glad I am to see you." "I am glad too," said Dolly, faintly smiling, and trying by the expression of Anna's face to find out whether she knew. Most likely she knows, she thought, noticing the sympathy in Anna's face. "Well, come along, I'll take you to your room." She went on, trying to defer as long as possible the moment of confidences. "Is this Grisha? Heavens, how he's grown," said Anna, and kissing him, never taking her eyes off Dolly. She stood still and flushed a little. "No, please, let us stay here." She took off her kerchief and her hat, and catching it in a lock of her black hair, which was a mass of curls, she tossed her head and shook her hair down. "You are radiant with health and happiness," said Dolly, almost with envy. "I?" "Yes," said Anna. "Merciful heavens, Tanya, you're the same age as my Seryoza," she added, addressing the little girl as she ran in. She took her in her arms and kissed her. "Delightful child, delightful! Show me them all." She mentioned them, not only remembering the names, but the years, months, characters, illnesses of all the children, and Dolly could not but appreciate that. "Very well, we will go to them," she said. "It's a pity Vasya's asleep." After seeing the children, they sat down, alone now in the drawing-room, to coffee. Anna took the tray and then pushed it away from her. "Dolly," she said, "he has told me." Dolly looked coldly at Anna. She was waiting now for phrases of conventional sympathy, but Anna said nothing of the sort. "Dolly, dear," she said, "I don't want to speak for him to you, nor to try to comfort you. That's impossible. But, darling, I'm simply sorry. Sorry from my heart for you." Under the thick lashes of her shining eyes, tears suddenly glittered. She moved nearer to her sister-in-law and took her hand in her vigorous little hand. Dolly did not shrink away, but her face did not lose its frigid expression. She said, "To comfort me's impossible. Everything's lost after what has happened. Everything's over." And directly she had said this, her face suddenly softened. Anna lifted and wasted thin hand of Dolly, kissed it, and said, "But Dolly, what's to be done? What's to be done? How is it best to act in this awful position? That's what you must think of. All's over, and there's nothing more for us," said Dolly. "And the worst of all is, you see, that I can't cast him off. There are the children. I am tied, and I can't live with him. It's a torture to me to see him." "Dolly, darling, he has spoken to me, but I want to hear it from you. Tell me about it." Dolly looked at her inquiringly. Sympathy and love unfeigned were visible on Anna's face. "Very well," she said all at once, "but I will tell you it from the beginning. You know how I was married. With the education Mama gave us, I was more than innocent. I was stupid. I knew nothing. I know they say men tell their wives of their former lives, but Stiva," she corrected herself, "Stepan Arkadyevitch told me nothing. You'll hardly believe it, but till now I imagined that I was the only woman he had known. So I lived 8 years. You must understand that I was so far from suspecting infidelity, I regarded it as impossible, and then try to imagine it, with such ideas, to find out suddenly all the horror, all the loathsomeness. You must try and understand me. to be fully convinced of one's happiness, and all at once, continued Dolly, holding back her sobs, to get a letter, his letter to his mistress, my governess. No, it's too awful. She hastily pulled out her handkerchief and hid her face in it. I can understand being carried away by feeling, she went on after a brief silence, but deliberately, slyly deceiving me. And with whom? To go on being my husband together with her. It's awful. You can't understand. Oh, yes, I understand. I understand, Dolly, dearest. I do understand, said Anna, pressing her hand. And do you imagine he realizes all the awfulness of my position? Dolly resumed. Not in the slightest. He's happy and contented. Oh, no, Anna interposed quickly. He's to be pitied. He's weighed down by remorse. Is he capable of remorse? Dolly interrupted, gazing intently into her sister-in-law's face. Yes, I know him. I could not look at him without feeling sorry for him. We both know him. He's good-hearted, but he's proud, and now he's so humiliated. What touched me most, and here Anna guessed what would touch Dolly most. He's tortured by two things: that he's ashamed for the children's sake, and that loving you, yes, loving you beyond everything on earth. She hurriedly interrupted Dolly, who would have answered. He has hurt you, pierced you to the heart. No, she cannot forgive me, he keeps saying. Dolly looked dreamily away beyond her sister-in-law as she listened to her words. Yes, I can see that his position is awful. It's worse for the guilty than the innocent, she said, if he feels that all the misery comes from his fault. But how am I to forgive him? How am I to be his wife again after her? For me to live with him now would be torture, just because I love my past love for him. And sobs cut short her words. But as though of set design, each time she was softened, she began to speak again of what exasperated her. She's young, you see. She's pretty, she went on. Do you know, Anna, my youth and my beauty are gone. Taken by whom? By him and his children. I have worked for him, and all I had has gone in his service. And now, of course, any fresh, vulgar creature has more charm for him. No doubt they talked of me together, or worse still, they were silent. Do you understand? Again her eyes glowed with hatred. And after that he will tell me. What? Can I believe him? Never. No. Everything is over. Everything that once made my comfort, the reward of my work and my sufferings. Would you believe it? I was teaching Grecian just now. Once this was a joy to me. Now it is a torture. What have I to strive and toil for? Why are the children here? What's so awful is that all at once my heart's turned, and instead of love and tenderness, I have nothing but hatred for him. Yes, hatred. I could kill him. Darling Dolly, I understand, but don't torture yourself. You are so distressed, so overwrought, that you look at many things mistakenly. Dolly grew calmer, and for 2 minutes both were silent. And what's to be done? Think for me, Anna. Help me. I have thought over and over, and I see nothing. Anna could think of nothing, but her heart responded instantly to each word, to each change of expression of her sister-in-law. One thing I would say, began Anna. I am his sister. I know his character, that faculty of forgetting everything. She waved her hand before her forehead. That faculty for being completely carried away, but for completely repenting, too. He cannot believe it. He cannot comprehend now how he can have acted as he did. No, he understands. He understood, Dolly broke in. But you are forgetting me. Does it make it easier for me? Wait a minute. When he told me, I will own I did not realize all the awfulness of your position. I saw nothing but him, and that the family was broken up. I felt sorry for him. But after talking to you, I see it, as a woman, quite differently. I see your agony, and I can't tell you how sorry I am for you. But Dolly, darling, I fully realize your sufferings, only there is one thing I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how much love there is still in your heart for him, that you know, whether there is enough for you to be able to forgive him. If there is, forgive him. No, Dolly was beginning, but Anna cut her short, kissing her hand once more. I know more of the world than you do, she said. I know men like Stiva. Look at it. You speak of his talking of you with her. That never happened. Such men are unfaithful, but their home and wife are sacred to them. Somehow or other, these women are still looked on with contempt by them, and do not touch on their feeling for their family. They draw a sort of line that can't be crossed between them and their families. I don't understand it, but it is so. Yes, but he has kissed her. Dolly, hush, darling. I know Stiva when he was in love with you. I remember the time when he came to me and cried, talking of you and all the poetry and loftiness of his feeling for you. And I know that the longer he has lived with you, the loftier you have been in his eyes. You know we have sometimes laughed at him for putting in at every word, Dolly's a marvelous woman. You know you have always been a divinity for him, and you are that still. And this has not been an infidelity of the heart, but if it is repeated, it cannot be, as I understand it. Yes, but could you forgive it? I don't know. I can't judge. Yes, I can, said Anna, thinking a moment and grasping the position in her thought and weighing it in her inner balance. She added, yes, I can. I can. I can. Yes, I could forgive it. I could not be the same, no, but I could forgive it, and I forgive it as though it had never been at all. Oh, of course, Dolly interposed quickly, as though saying what she had more than once thought. Else it would not be forgiveness. If one forgives, it must be completely, completely. Come, let us go. I'll take you to your room, she said, getting up, and on the way she embraced Anna. My dear, how glad I am you came. It has made things better, ever so much better. End of chapter 20. Okay, Anna's in the house. Anna has come home from the train station. She's in the house. She is so delighted to see all of the children. She remembers all of their names. She knows how old they are, including the years, the months, the days, everything. She knows all of their interests, their quirks. Every time they've been sick, she's been asking about them. She's greeting each of them by name. She's having a grand time. And then Dolly is like, Anna, let me show you to your room. And they go and they have a chat. And Anna is like, okay, Dolly, sweetness, I have heard from my brother what has happened, but I would like to hear what has happened from you. So Dolly is like, all right, well, let me tell it to you from the beginning. And so she tells the story of his affairs and is just so like at war with how she's able to forgive him when he cheated with the governess, and how to keep having her around and keep having them around her children, and how to explain this to her children and all of these things. And Anna is like, it would be hard, but you need to forgive him. And Dolly's like, but but would you be able to forgive him? And she's like, the first time, yeah. And Dolly's like, okay, but like, what if it happens again? And Anna's like, I don't think it will, from my understanding. And then Anna also talks about how there is, in men's minds, this divide between it affecting the family and what he has done. And so, in men's minds, according to Anna, the affair was just an affair. He still deeply loves and adores Dolly, and he still deeply loves and adores the children, and doesn't understand why it crosses that line, like why that would even be put to question. And Dolly is of the mind of like, well, of course it does. Like, of course it crosses that line. And also, like we got from Stepan's thoughts, Dolly says out loud, like, I am much older. I am not as beautiful as I used to be. I am not as young as I used to be. And where did it all go? To him and to the children, our children. So they're just going back and forth, and there is pauses in what Anna is saying in addition to the actual words that she's saying. And in those pauses, we are getting little instances of who Anna is and maybe what Anna has already gone through or what she's currently going through or dot dot dot. So that's fun too. Where did Anna get all of these insights? Exactly, exactly. I am so intensely involved in this conversation. I can scarcely believe it. Right? I'm just like, so Anna, forgive the first time? Hmm? Personal philosophy on infidelity. You cheat, you're done. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Anna's like, well, maybe it'll only happen this once and you should forgive and then move on and everything will be great. And it's like, Anna, how did you come to this conclusion? My dear, my dear Anna, my dearest Anna Karenina, how did you come to this? Interesting, interesting. Chapter 20. The whole of that day Anna spent at home, so that's to say at the Oblonskys', and received no one, though some of her acquaintances had already heard of her arrival and came to call the same day. Anna spent the whole morning with Dolly and the children. She merely sent a brief note to her brother to tell him that he must not fail to dine at home. Come, God is merciful, she wrote. Oblonsky did dine at home. The conversation was general, and his wife, speaking to him, addressed him as Stiva, as she had not done before. In the relations of the husband and wife, the same estrangement still remained. But there was no talk now of separation, and Stepan Arkadyevitch saw the possibility of explanation and reconciliation. Immediately after dinner, Kitty came in. She knew Anna Arkadyevna, but only very slightly, and she came now to her sisters with some trepidation at the prospect of meeting this fashionable Petersburg lady, whom everyone spoke so highly of. But she made a favorable impression on Anna Arkadyevna. She saw that at once. Anna was unmistakably admiring her loveliness and her youth. Before Kitty knew where she was, she found herself not merely under Anna's sway, but in love with her, as young girls do fall in love with older and married women. Anna was not like a fashionable lady, nor the mother of a boy of 8 years old. In the elasticity of her movements, the freshness and the unflagging eagerness which persisted in her face and broke out in her smile and her glance, she would rather have passed for a girl of 20, had it not been for a serious and, at times, mournful look in her eyes, which struck and attracted Kitty. Kitty felt that Anna was perfectly simple and was concealing nothing, but that she had another higher world of interests, inaccessible, inaccessible to her, complex and poetic. After dinner, when Dolly went away to her own room, Anna rose quickly and went up to her brother, who was just lighting a cigar. Steva, she said to him, winking happily, crossing him and glancing towards the door. Go, and God help you. She threw down the cigar, understanding her, and departed through the doorway. When Stepan Arkadyevitch had disappeared, she went back to the sofa where she had been sitting, surrounded by the children. Either because the children saw that her mother was fond of his aunt, or that they felt a special charm in her themselves, the two elder ones, and the younger following their lead, as children so often do, had clung about their new aunt since before dinner, and would not leave her side. And it had become a sort of game among them to sit as close as possible to their aunt, to touch her, hold her little hand, kiss it, play with her ring, or even touch the flounce of her skirt. Come, come, as we are sitting before, said Anna Arkadyevna, sitting down in her place. And again Grisha poked his little face under her arm and nestled with his head on her gown, beaming with pride and happiness. "And when is your next ball?" she asked Kitty. "Next week, and a splendid ball. One of those balls where one always enjoys oneself." "Why, are there balls where one always enjoys oneself?" Anna asked with tender irony. "It's strange, but there are. At the Bobristishevs, one always enjoys oneself. And at the Nikitins, too, while at the Mezhkovs, it's always dull. Haven't you noticed it?" "No, my dear. For me there are no balls now where one enjoys oneself," said Anna, and Kitty detected in her eyes that mysterious world which was not open to her. "For me there are some less dull and tiresome." "How can you be dull at a ball?" Why should not I be dull at a ball?" inquired Anna. Kitty perceived that Anna knew what answer would follow. "Because you always look nicer than anyone." Anna had the faculty of blushing. She blushed a little and said, "In the first place, it's never so, and secondly, if it were, what difference would it make to me?" "Are you coming to this ball?" asked Kitty. "I imagine it won't be possible to avoid going. Here, take it," she said to Tanya, who was pulling the loosely fitting ring off her white, slender-tipped finger. "I shall be so glad if you go. I should like to see you at a ball. Anyway, if I do go, I shall comfort myself with the thought that it's the pleasure to you. Grisha, don't pull my hair. It's untidy enough without that," she said, putting up a stray lock which Grisha had been playing with. "I imagine you at the ball in lilac." "And why in lilac precisely?" asked Anna, smiling. "Now, children, run along, run along. Do you hear? Miss Hoole is calling you to tea," she said, tearing the children from her and sending them off to the dining room. "I know why you press me to come to the ball. You expect a great deal of this ball, and you want everyone to be there to take part in it." "How do you know?" "Yes." "Ah, what a happy time you are at," pursued Anna. "I remember, and I know that blue haze like the mist on the mountains in Switzerland, that mist which covers everything in that blissful time when childhood is just ending, and out of that vast circle, happy, there is a path growing narrower and narrower, and it is delightful and alarming to enter the ballroom, bright and splendid as it is. Who has not been through it?" Kitty smiled, without speaking. "But how did she go through it? How I should like to know all her love story." thought Kitty, recalling the unromantic appearance of Alexei Alexandrovich, her husband. I know something. Steva told me, and I congratulate you. I liked him so much, Anna continued. I met Vronsky at the railway station. Oh, was he there? Asked Kitty, blushing. What was it Steva told you? Steva gossiped about it all. And I should be so glad. I traveled yesterday with Vronsky's mother, she went on. And his mother talked without a pause of him. He's her favorite. I know mothers are partial, but what did his mother tell you? Oh, a great deal. And I know that he's her favorite. Still, one can see how chivalrous he is. Well, for instance, she told me that he had wanted to give up all his property to his brother, that he had done something extraordinary when he was quite a child, saved a woman out of the water. He's a hero, in fact, said Anna, smiling, and recollecting the 200 rubles he had given at the station. But she did not tell Kitty about the 200 rubles. For some reason, it was disagreeable to her to think of it. She felt that there was something that had to do with her in it, and something that ought not to have been. She pressed me very much to go and see her, Anna went on, and I shall be glad to go to see her tomorrow. Steva is staying a long while in Dolly's room, thank God, Anna added, changing the subject and getting up. Kitty fancied, displeased with something. No, I'm first. No, I, screamed the children who had finished tea, running up to their Aunt Anna. All together, said Anna, and she ran laughing to meet them, and embraced and swung round all the throng of swarming children, shrieking with delight. End of chapter 20. Okay, chapter 20, we have Stepan and Dolly in the other room talking. We don't know what they're talking about because we are with Kitty and Anna. And Kitty has heard of Anna and has been excited to meet her because she is a highfalutin lady from St. Petersburg. And so she goes there and she is just enamored and in awe of her. And it's like, I want to be her when I grow up. And it's like, if she didn't know that Anna had an 8-year-old and was married and all of these things, like she would think that she was like in her 20s and just living life. Like she had like that youthful energy and that youthful look. And so they start talking, and Anna is like, oh, they start talking about the balls. And we get little insights of Anna's life back at home. And she's like, balls are dull and boring. And um Kitty is like, how can you say that? This one is going to be so exciting. Like, from these families, everybody always has fun, but this one is a little dull. And she's like, I want you to come to my ball, and I want you to wear this color dress, and it will be beautiful. And Anna is like, I know why you're so excited. My brother told me, and I have met his mother, and Vronsky is a maze, and I'm so excited for you. And so Kitty is like blushing and flushing from that, and then Anna changes the subject because it seems like she doesn't really want to talk about balls or high society. And she's like, oh, the children need to go to tea, and oh, it seems like Stepan and Dolly have been in this room for a long time. That seems like a good sign. Exciting things. It's the cool aunt energy. Yeah, exactly. Chapter 21. Dolly came out of her room to the tea of the grown-up people. Stepan Arkadyevitch did not come out. He must have left his wife's room by the other door. Well, I'm afraid you'll be cold upstairs, observed Dolly, addressing Anna. I want to move you downstairs, and we shall be nearer. Oh, please, don't trouble about me, answered Anna, looking intently into Dolly's face, trying to make out whether there had been a reconciliation or not. I will be lighter for you here, answered her sister-in-law. I assure you that I sleep everywhere and always like a marmot. What's the question? Inquired Stepan Arkadyevitch, coming out of his room and addressing his wife. From his tone, both Kitty and Anna knew that a reconciliation had taken place. I want to move Anna downstairs, but we must hang up blinds. No one knows how to do it. I must see to it myself, answered Dolly, addressing him. God knows whether they are fully reconciled, thought Anna, hearing her tone cold and composed. Oh, nonsense, Dolly. Always making difficulties, answered her husband. Come, I'll do it all, if you like. Yes, they must be reconciled, thought Anna. I know how you do everything, answered Dolly. You must tell Matvey to do what can't be done, and go away yourself, leaving him to make a muddle of everything. And her habitual, mocking smile curved the corners of Dolly's lips as she spoke. Full, full reconciliation, full, thought Anna. Thank God. And rejoicing that she was the cause of it, she went up to Dolly and kissed her. Not at all. Why do you always look down on me and Matvey? Said Stepan Arkadyevitch, smiling hardly perceptibly, and addressing his wife. The whole evening Dolly was, as always, a little mocking in her tone to her husband, while Stepan Arkadyevitch was happy and cheerful, but not so as to seem as though, having been forgiven, he had forgotten his offense. At 9:30 a particularly joyful and pleasant family conversation over the tea-table at the Oblonskys' was broken up by an apparently simple incident. But this simple incident, for some reason, struck everyone as strange. Talking about common acquaintances in Petersburg, Anna got up quickly. She is in my album, she said. And by the way, I'll show you my Seroja, she added, with a mother's smile of pride. Towards 10 o'clock, when she usually said good night to her son, and often before going to a ball put him to bed herself, she felt depressed at being so far from him, and whatever she was talking about, she kept coming back in thought to her curly-headed Seroja. She longed to look at his photograph and talk of him. Seizing the first pretext, she got up, and with her light, resolute step, went for her album. The stairs up to her room came out on the landing of the great, warm main staircase. Just as she was leaving the drawing-room, a ring was heard in the hall. "Who can that be?" said Dolly. "It's early for me to be fetched, and for anyone else it's late," observed Kitty. "Sure to be someone with papers for me," put in Stepan Arkadyevitch. When Anna was passing the top of the staircase, a servant was running up to announce the visitor, while the visitor himself was standing under a lamp. Anna, glancing down, at once recognized Vronsky, and a strange feeling of pleasure, and at the same time of dread of something stirred in her heart. He was standing still, not taking off his coat, pulling something out of his pocket. At the instant when she was just facing the stairs, he raised his eyes, caught sight of her, and into the expression of his face there passed a shade of embarrassment and dismay. With a slight inclination of her head she passed, hearing behind her Stepan Arkadyevitch's loud voice calling him to come up, and the quiet, soft, and composing voice of Vronsky refusing. When Anna returned with the album, he was already gone, and Stepan Arkadyevitch was telling them that he had called to inquire about the dinner they were giving next day to a celebrity who had just arrived. And nothing would induce him to come up. What an odd fellow he is, added Stepan Arkadyevitch. Kitty blushed. She thought that she was the only person who knew why he had come, and why he would not come up. Oh, he has been at home, she thought, and didn't find me, and thought I should be there, but he did not come up because he thought it late, and Anna's here. All of them looked at each other, saying nothing, and began to look at Anna's album. There was nothing either exceptional or strange in a man's calling at 9:30 on a friend to inquire details of a proposed dinner party and not coming in. but it seemed strange to all of them. Above all, it seemed strange and not right to Anna. End of chapter 21. Ooh. Mm. Okay. We have we weren't in the room when Stefan and Dolly were talking, but they do come out, and both Anna and Kitty are like, did they make up? Did they reconcile? And they're trying to get little instances and little proofs in how they're talking to each other and what they're saying. And they're just going about regular life, trying to get Anna set up and comfortable. And so they are, lounging about, chatting with everybody. And Anna is like, oh, I miss my son so dearly. Let me bring out my album. And then Matvey comes in and is like, there's a caller here. Somebody is here. And everyone's like, who is this? Like, it's much too late for a gentleman caller. But it's like, who's it gonna be? And Stepan is like, it's probably for me. It's probably somebody who wants me to sign some papers. Like, this is normal. And so Anna gets up and she looks and she sees that it is Vronsky. And Vronsky looks up in a very cinematic, dramatic way. And they both sort of like lock eyes and know but don't know at the same time. Like, and Stefan comes over and is like, oh, come on up, Vronsky. And Vronsky refuses. And so Stefan goes down to see like what's going on. And it turns out that Vronsky is just asking, questions and confirming details for the dinner that he's going to have tomorrow. And it is noted here that this is not a weird occurrence. The time that he came is not weird. The not coming in is not weird. The fact that he came over just to confirm details for an event that is tomorrow is not weird. But every person there has a feeling of strangeness, and for different reasons. And I like that. Ooh, I like that so much. All right. Chapter 22. The ball was only just beginning as Kitty and her mother walked up the great staircase, flooded with light, and lined with flowers and footmen in powder and red coats. From the sunrooms came a constant, steady hum as from a hive, and the rustle of movement. And while on the landing between trees they gave last touches to their hair and dresses before the mirror, they heard from the ballroom the careful, distinct notes of the fiddles of the orchestra beginning the first waltz. A little old man in civilian dress, arranging his gray curls before another mirror and diffusing an odor of scent, stumbled against them on the stairs and stood aside, evidently admiring Kitty, whom he did not know. A beardless youth, one of those society youths whom the old Prince Shtcherbatskoy called young bucks, in an exceedingly open waistcoat, straightening his white tie as he went, bowed to them, and after running by, came back to ask Kitty for a quadrille. As the first quadrille had already been given to Vronsky, she had promised this youth the second. An officer, buttoning his glove, stood aside in the doorway and, stroking his mustache, admired rosy Kitty. Although her dress, her coiffure, and all the preparations for the ball had cost Kitty great trouble and consideration, at this moment she walked into the ballroom in her elaborate tulle dress over a pink slip as easily and simply as though all the rosettes and lace, all the minute details of her attire had not cost her or her family a moment's attention, as though she had been born in that tulle and lace, with her hair done up high on her head and a rose and two leaves on top of it. When, just before entering the ballroom, the princess, her mother, tried to turn right side out of the ribbon of her sash, Kitty had drawn back a little. She felt that everything must be right of itself and graceful, and nothing could need setting straight. It was one of Kitty's best days. Her dress was not uncomfortable anywhere. Her lace berth did not droop anywhere. Her rosettes were not crushed nor torn off. Her pink slippers with high, hollowed-out heels did not pinch, but gladdened her feet, and the thick rolls of fair chignon kept up on her head as if they were her own hair. All the 3 buttons buttoned up without tearing on the long sleeve that covered her hand without concealing its lines. The black velvet of her locket nestled with special softness round her neck. That velvet was delicious. At home, looking at her neck in the looking-glass, Kitty had felt that that velvet was speaking. About all the rest there might be a doubt, but the velvet was delicious. Kitty smiled here, too, at the ball, when she glanced at it in the glass. Her bare shoulders and arms gave Kitty a sense of chill marble, a feeling she particularly liked. Her eyes sparkled, and her rosy lips could not keep from smiling from the consciousness of her own attractiveness. She had scarcely entered the ball and reached the throng of ladies, all tulle, ribbons, lace, and flowers, waiting to be asked to dance. Kitty was never one of that throng. When she was asked for a waltz, and asked by the best partner, the first star in the hierarchy of the ballroom, a renowned director of dances, a married man, handsome and well-built, Yegorishka Koronsky. Yegorishka Koronsky. That sounds like a Russian name. He had only just left the Countess Bonina, with whom he had danced the first half of the waltz, and, scanning his kingdom, that is to say, a few couples who had started dancing, he caught sight of Kitty, entering, and flew up to her with that peculiar, easy amble which is confined to directors of balls. Without even asking her if she cared to dance, he put out his arm to encircle her slender waist. She looked round for someone to give her fan to, and their hostess, smiling to her, took it. "How nice you've come in good time," he said to her, embracing her waist. "Such a bad habit to be late." Bending her left hand, she laid it on his shoulder, and her little feet in her pink slippers began swiftly, lightly, and rhythmically moving over the slippery floor in time to the music. "It's a rest to waltz with you," he said to her, as they fell into the first slow steps of the waltz. "It's exquisite, such lightness, precision." He said to her the same thing he said to almost all his partners, whom he knew well. She smiled at his praise, and continued to look about the room over her shoulder. She was not like a girl at her first ball, for whom all faces in the ballroom melt into one vision of fairyland. And she was not a girl who had gone the stale round of balls till every face in the ballroom was familiar and tiresome. But she was in the middle stage between these two. She was excited, and at the same time she had sufficient self-possession to be able to observe. In the left corner of the ballroom she saw the cream society gathered together. There, incredibly naked, was the beauty Lady Koronsky's wife. There was the lady of the house. There shone the bald head of Krivin, always to be found where the best people were. In that direction gazed the young men not venturing to approach. There, too, she descried Stiva, and there she saw the exquisite figure and head of Anna in a black velvet gown. And he was there. Kitty had not seen him since the evening she refused Levin. With her long-sighted eyes, she knew him at once, and was even aware that he was looking at her. "Another turn, eh? You're not tired?" said Kerensky, a little out of breath. "No, thank you. Where shall I take you?" "Madame Karenina's here. I think... Take me to her." "Wherever you command." And Kerensky began waltzing with measured steps straight towards the group in the left corner, continually saying, "Pardon, madame, pardon, pardon, madame," and steering his course through the sea of lace, tulle, and ribbon, and not disarranging a feather. He turned his partner sharply round, so that her slim ankles, in light transparent stockings, were exposed to view, and her train floated out in a fan shape and covered Kriven's knees. Kerensky bowed, set straight his open shirt front, and gave her his arm to conduct her to Anna Arkadyevna. Kitty, flushed, took her train from Kriven's knees and, a little giddy, looked round, seeking Anna. Anna was not in lilac, as Kitty had so urgently wished, but in a black, low-cut velvet gown showing her full throat and shoulders that looked as though carved in old ivory, and her rounded arms with tiny, slender wrists. The whole gown was trimmed with Venetian guipure. On her head, among her black hair, her own, with no false additions, was a little wreath of pansies and a bouquet of the same in the black ribbon of her sash among white lace. Her coiffure was not striking. All that was noticeable was the little wilful tendrils of her curly hair that would always break free about her neck and temples. Round her well-cut, strong neck was a thread of pearls. Kitty had been seeing Anna every day. She adored her, and had pictured her invariably in lilac. But now, seeing her in black, she felt that she had not fully seen her charm. She saw her now as someone quite new and surprising to her. Now she understood that Anna could not have been in lilac, and that her charm was just that she always stood out against her attire, and that her dress could never be noticeable on her. And her black dress, with its sumptuous lace, was not noticeable on her. It was only the frame, and all that was seen was she, simple, natural, elegant, and at the same time eager and happy. She was standing holding herself, as always, very erect, and when Kitty drew near the group, she was speaking to the master of the house, her head slightly turned towards him. "No, I don't throw stones," she was saying in answer to something, "though I can't understand it," she went on, shrugging her shoulders, and she turned at once with a soft smile of protection towards Kitty. With a flying, feminine glance, she scanned her attire and made a movement of her head, hardly perceptible, but understood by Kitty, signifying approval of her dress and her looks. "You came into the room dancing," she added. "This is one of my most faithful supporters," said Kerensky, bowing to Anna Arkadyevna, whom he had not yet seen. "The princess helps to make balls happy and successful. Anna Arkadyevna, a waltz?" he said, bending down to her. "Why, have you met?" inquired their host. "Is there anyone we have not met? My wife and I are like white wolves. Everyone knows us," answered Kerensky. "A waltz, Anna Arkadyevna?" "I don't dance when it's possible not to dance," she said. "But tonight it's impossible," answered Kerensky. At that instant, Vronsky came up. "Well, since it's impossible tonight, let us start," she said, not noticing Vronsky's bow, and she hastily put her hand on Korsunsky's shoulder. "What is she vexed with him about?" thought Kitty, discerning that Anna had intentionally not responded to Vronsky's bow. Vronsky went up to Kitty, reminding her of the first quadrille, and expressing his regret that he had not seen her all this time. Kitty gazed in admiration at Anna waltzing, and listened to him. She expected him to ask her for a waltz, but he did not, and she glanced wonderingly at him. He flushed slightly and hurriedly asked her to waltz, but he had only just put his arm round her waist and taken the first step when the music suddenly stopped. Kitty looked into his face, which was so close to her own, and long afterwards, for several years after, that look, full of love, to which he made no response, cut her to the heart with an agony of shame. "Pardon, pardon, waltz, waltz!" shouted Korsunsky from the other side of the room, and seizing the first young lady he came across, he began dancing himself. End of chapter 22. All right, we are at a ball, and Kitty is so looking forward to this because she so desperately wants to dance with people, specifically with Vronsky, and she just wants to be around Anna. She is just drawn to her and entranced by her. And so she is dancing with Korsunsky, who is married, and they are dancing a waltz. He's also very good at dancing and just has a way that is so fluid, and he's giving the same line to Kitty as he's giving to everybody, which is just, "You're great, and dancing with you is like having a break because I don't have to do all of this extra work. You're not stepping on my toes," all of the things that are implied by that statement. And the song has ended, and he's like, "Oh, would you like to have a waltz now?" And she's like, "Actually, Anna Arkadyevna just came in. Like, can we go over there?" And he's like, "Absolutely." And so they like dance their way over, which, what an entrance. Love that. And dance their way over, and they're caught at the end of a conversation, and they just kind of like insert themselves, and Korsunsky already knows who Anna is and is like asking for a dance, and Anna's like, "I don't dance if it can be helped." And he's like, "Well, I don't think tonight can be helped. I think it is not impossible to dance, and you have to dance." And so she's like, "All right." And so she goes with Korsunsky. However, while she, like, right before she's going to dance with Korsunsky, Vronsky shows up and bows to Anna, and it looks from the outside, from Kitty's perspective, that Anna has snubbed him and was like, "I see your bow, and I reject." But from us, the reader's perspective, it's, translated that way in Kitty's, so we're like, "Oh yeah, that must be it." But maybe she just didn't see him. I don't know. It says that she didn't see him. I don't know what to believe. But she goes off and dances, and Vronsky and Kitty are standing there, and late, Vronsky realizes that he should ask her to waltz. And they're going to waltz. He, like, puts his arm around her waist, and as soon as they're going to step off, the music just immediately stops. And she, looks up into his face, and she is full of love and full of excitement and, like, wants to be with Vronsky. And for the first time, for many years, she does not see that love reciprocated in his face. And that's where it ended. Let's see. Oh, we got time. We got time. Let's do another one. We'll do another one. Another one. Chapter 23. Vronsky and Kitty waltzed several times around the room. After the first waltz, Kitty went to her mother, and she had hardly time to say a few words to Countess Nordston when Vronsky came up again for the first quadrille. During the quadrille, nothing of any significance was said. There was disjointed talk between them of the Korsunskys, husband and wife, whom he described very amusingly as delightful children at 40, and at the future town theatre. And only once the conversation touched her to the quick, when he asked her about Levin, whether he was here, and added that he liked him so much. But Kitty did not expect much from the quadrille. She looked forward, with a thrill at her heart, to the mazurka. She fancied that in the mazurka everything must be decided. The fact that he did not, during the quadrille, ask her for the mazurka did not trouble her. She felt sure she would dance the mazurka with him, as she had done at former balls, and refused 5 young men, saying she was engaged for the mazurka. The whole ball, up to the last quadrille, was for Kitty an enchanted vision of delightful colors, sounds, and motions. She only sat down when she felt too tired and begged for the rest. But as she was dancing the last quadrille with one of the tiresome young men whom she could not refuse, she chanced to be vis-a-vis with Vronsky and Anna. She had not been near Anna again since the beginning of the evening, and now again she saw her suddenly quite new and surprising. She saw in her the signs of that excitement of success she knew so well in herself. She saw that she was intoxicated with the delighted admiration she was exciting. She knew that feeling, and knew its signs, and saw them in Anna, saw the quivering, flashing light in her eyes, and the smile of happiness and excitement unconsciously playing on her lips, and the deliberate grace, precision, and lightness of her movements. Who? She asked herself. All or one? And not assisting the harassed young man she was dancing with in the conversation, the thread of which he had lost and could not pick up again, she obeyed with external liveliness the peremptory shouts of Korsunsky, starting them all into the Grande Ronde and then into the Chaîne. And at the same time she kept watching with a growing pang at her heart. No, it's not the admiration of the crowd has intoxicated her, but the adoration of one. And that one? Can it he be? Every time he spoke to Anna, the joyous light flashed into her eyes, and the smile of happiness curved her red lips. She seemed to make an effort to control herself, to try not to show these signs of delight, but they came out on her face of themselves. But what of him? Kitty looked at him and was filled with terror. What was pictured so clearly to Kitty in the mirror on Anna's face, she saw in him. What had become of his always self-possessed, resolute manner and the carelessness, serene expression of his face? Now every time he turned to her, he bent his head, as though he would have fallen at her feet, and in his eyes there was nothing but humble submission and dread. "I would not offend you," his eyes seemed every time to be saying, "but I want to save myself, and I don't know how." On his face was a look such as Kitty had never seen before. They were speaking of common acquaintances, keeping up the most trivial conversation, but to Kitty it seemed that every word they said was determining their fate and hers. And strange it was that they were actually talking of how absurd Ivan Ivanovitch was with his French, and how the Aletsky girl might have made a better match, yet these words had all the while consequence for them, and they were feeling just as Kitty did. The whole ball, the whole world, everything seemed lost in fog in Kitty's soul. Nothing but the stern discipline of her bringing up supported her and forced her to do what was expected of her, that is, to dance, to answer questions, to talk, even to smile. But before the mazurka, when they were beginning to rearrange the chairs and a few couples moved out of the smaller rooms into the big room, a moment of despair and horror came for Kitty. She had refused 5 partners, and now she was not dancing the mazurka. She had not even a hope of being asked for it, because she was so successful in society that the idea would never occur to anyone that she had remained disengaged till now. She would have to tell her mother she felt ill and go home, but she had not the strength to do this. She felt crushed. She went to the furthest end of the little drawing room and sank into a low chair. Her light, transparent skirts rose like a cloud about her slender waist. One bare, thin, soft, girlish arm, hanging listlessly, was lost in the folds of her pink tunic. In the other she held her fan, and with rapid, short strokes fanned her burning face. But while she looked like a butterfly clinging to a blade of grass and just about to open its rainbow wings for fresh flight, her heart ached with a horrible despair. But perhaps I am wrong. Perhaps it was not so. And again, she recalled all she had seen. "Kitty, what is it?" said Countess Nordston, stepping noiselessly over the carpet towards her. "I don't understand it." Kitty's lower lip began to quiver. She got up quickly. "Kitty, you're not dancing the mazurka?" "No, no," said Kitty in a voice shaking with tears. "He asked her for the mazurka before me," said Countess Nordston, knowing Kitty would understand who were he and her. "She said, 'Why aren't you going to dance it with Princess Shtcherbatskaya?'" "Oh, I don't care," answered Kitty. No one but she herself understood her position. No one knew that she had just refused the man whom perhaps she loved, and refused him because she had put her faith in another. Countess Nordston found Korsunsky, with whom she was to dance the mazurka, and told him to ask Kitty. Kitty danced in the first couple, and luckily for her she had not to talk, because Korsunsky was all the time running about directing the figure. Vronsky and Anna sat almost opposite her. She saw them with her long-sighted eyes, and saw them, too, close by, when they met in the figures, and the more she saw of them, the more convinced was she that her unhappiness was complete. She saw that they felt themselves alone in that crowded room, and on Vronsky's face, always so firm and independent, she saw that look that had struck her, of bewilderment and humble submissiveness, like the expression of an intelligent dog when it has done wrong. Anna smiled, and her smile was reflected by him. She grew thoughtful, and she became serious. Some supernatural force drew Kitty's eyes to Anna's face. She was fascinating in her simple black dress. Fascinating were her round arms with their bracelets. Fascinating was her firm neck with its thread of pearls. Fascinating the straying curls of her loose hair. Fascinating the graceful, light movements of her little feet and hands. Fascinating was that lovely face in its eagerness. But there was something terrible and cruel in her fascination. Kitty admired her more than ever, and more acute of her suffering. Kitty felt overwhelmed, and her face showed it. When Vronsky saw her, coming across her in the mazurka, he did not at once recognize her. She was so changed. "Delightful ball," he said to her, for the sake of saying something. "Yes," she answered. In the middle of the mazurka, repeating a complicated figure newly invented by Korsunsky, Anna came forward into the center of the circle, chose 2 gentlemen, and summoned a lady and Kitty. Kitty gazed at her in dismay as she went up. Anna looked at her with drooping eyelids and smiled, pressing her hand. But noticing that Kitty only responded to her smile by a look of despair and amazement. She turned away from her and began talking to the other lady. Yes, there is something uncanny, devilish, and fascinating in her, Kitty said to herself. Anna did not mean to stay to supper, but the master of the house began to press her to do so. Nonsense, Anna Arkadyevna, said Korsunsky, drawing her bare arm under the sleeve of his dress coat. I've such an idea for a cotillion, un beau jour. And he moved gradually on, trying to draw her along with him. Their host smiled approvingly. No, I am not going to stay, answered Anna, smiling, but in spite of her smile, both Korsunsky and the master of the house saw from her resolute tone that she would not stay. No. Why, as it is, I have danced more at your ball in Moscow than I have all the winter in Petersburg, said Anna, looking round at Vronsky, who stood near her. I must rest a little before my journey. Are you certainly going tomorrow, then? Asked Vronsky. Yes, I suppose so, answered Anna, as it were wondering at the boldness of his question, but the irrepressible, quivering brilliance of her eyes and her smile set him on fire as she said it. Anna Arkadyevna did not stay to supper, but went home. End of chapter 23. Okay. Whew. So we get a lot of internalness from Kitty. And Kitty is sad because she turned away so many people for the dance of the mazurka, knowing, just absolutely knowing that Vronsky is going to ask her to dance the mazurka. And in the mazurka, she knows that she is going to have that connection where they're both just going to click and they're both just going to be like so madly in love. She knows this to be true. And so she's just been refusing people all evening. She's like, no, 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 not for the mazurka. I will dance the waltz with you. I will do the quadrille, like all of these things. And the mazurka comes, and she doesn't have anybody to dance with. He has not asked her, he being Vronsky, has not asked her to dance. And the countess is there and is like, Kitty, what are you doing? Why are you all alone? And they both know, just in how they're phrasing things and how they're saying things. They both know what has happened. And Anna is dancing with Vronsky. And so the Countess is supposed to dance with Korsunsky, and when Korsunsky comes over to lead the Countess out to the dance floor, the Countess is like, you need to ask Kitty. And so Kitty ends up dancing with him. And they are dancing, and while they're dancing, luckily she doesn't have to talk, which is great because she doesn't really want to, and she is noticing from afar Vronsky and Alice and Alice, who is Alice? Vronsky and Anna dancing, and then as the formation of the dance is changing, they are getting closer and closer, and so she does see them as well, and she is not just seeing them dance, she's seeing their relationship form right then. She is seeing in them that they believe themselves to be the only ones in the room, the only ones in this crowd, the only ones dancing together. And she is noticing this, and she's coming to this understanding, like, that's why he doesn't have that look for me. The look that I have for him, I am seeing him give Anna. And so she's being just crushed. Her poor little heart is being hurt. And she's thinking about Levin, and she's like, I really loved Levin, but I turned him down with the hope, with the idea, with the faith that Vronsky would propose, and that is clearly not going to happen. And so she is crushed all the more because she was going to be with somebody who she did love and turned him down, and now she is with no one. And we also know that Anna is going back to St. Petersburg tomorrow. And that is where the chapter ended. Give me that metaphor. I know the writing is just so delicious. Even the way that like the dresses are described, like they're not described, but they're described. They're described enough where like your little brain cells are firing to just piece together something that is so beautiful and elegant and graceful and just fitting their characters perfectly. So, that's cool. If you can't be with the one you love, honey, love the one you're with. Yeah, still enjoying it. Thumbs up. But that's going to be where we end tonight. Thank you all for being here. We will continue right where we left off next week. Thank you all for being here. As always, whether you lurk, whether you chat, I 1000% appreciate you. And I 1000% appreciate your support. And if I don't see you next time, I hope to see you very soon.